Board shall consist of 5 members appointed by the New York State Gaming Commission. 5 members having been appointed by the Commission affords the Board an ability to establish quorum and undertake action. This present meeting of the Board is now called to order. Establishment of a quorum requires 3 members being present. Please indicate your presence when your name is called. Paul Francis?
Present.
Dennis Glazer?
Present.
Kevin Law?
Present.
Stuart Rabinowitz? William Thompson?
Present.
Since the conduct of the last board meeting, the Commission has designated Kevin Law as chairman. Chairman Law?
Thank you, Robert. First order of business is a review of the minutes of May 12, 2014. They've been provided to the members in advance, and at this time I'd like to ask the members if there are any edits, corrections, or amendments. Hearing none, is this something I think we need to approve?
No, just accept
Do we just
as-
need to accept these? Here are
As
no
circulated.
minutes or edits or corrections, and so we will accept the minutes as distributed. Rob, what's the next item, please?
Florida Acquisition Corporation has sought to develop a gaming facility in Region 2 to be located within the town of Florida, Montgomery County. Staff has prepared and circulated a memorandum that details specific issues with the Florida Acquisition Corporation's request for application, physical filing, and content. In short, staff finds that the Florida Acquisition Corporation failed to file the required materials and objectively failed to meet threshold application requirements.
Commissioners, are there any questions regarding the memorandum that was distributed regarding the Florida Acquisition Corporation, the application itself?
No, I thought it was pretty comprehensive that was provided by staff.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jeff Carr. I'm the Director of Florida Acquisition Corp.
I'll
request
Can you-
to address the meeting.
Please have a seat, and I'll be with you in a sec first. I want to get a motion on the table, and then I'll ask if there are any questions or comments. Based on the memorandum and based on Bill's comments, may I have a motion to first disqualify Florida Acquisition Corporation?
So moved.
Second? Okay, there's a motion on the table. Any discussion on the motion from any of the commissioners?
No.
Hearing none. While we do not have a public portion component of this, a gentleman just stood up and asked to be recognized. I'll ask you to state your name and where you're from, and then we'll let you know if we'll allow you to participate in our discussion.
Thank you, sir. My name is Jeff Carr. I'm a Director of Florida Acquisition Corporation, and I would request the opportunity to address the board, and also with me is Mayor Fain, the Mayor of Amsterdam. She would also like to have the opportunity to address the board for a very brief moment.
Okay. Well, again, we're not obligated to or required to, but what we are not allowed to do, we are not allowed to engage in discussions with you, sir, because that would be unfair deliberations with an applicant, and there are 16 of them. However, as a courtesy to the mayor, who is not an applicant, we will allow you to speak for 3 minutes, no more. And if you could state your name for the record, we'll entertain some comments from you. No disrespect to you, sir, it's just what we're not allowed to do.
Appreciate that.
I do very much appreciate the commission for allowing this, because I know this is unusual, and, okay. So, thank you all. Oh, thank you, because I have a torn ACL.
Oh, be careful.
Here we go.
Sit down, okay.
Pretty well for that.
Thank
And we are
you.
going to hold you to 3 minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll be very close to 3 minutes, I'm sure. I'd like to thank you. I know you have a thankless and controversial job here, but I'm Ann Thane, A-N-N-T-H-A-N-E. I am mayor of the city of Amsterdam. I represent 18,000 residents in my city and 31,000 residents in the county of Montgomery. We live in a county that is subject to extreme poverty, and just yesterday I lost in industry 120 jobs leaving my community. So we are really in a tough spot, and I know that there are other communities that are experiencing similar situations, but we are one of the most impoverished counties in the state. I am here to respectfully ask that this commission reconsider the recommendation to disqualify the Florida Acquisitions application to locate a casino in our community. In considering my request, I'd like to review my experience and impressions of this process. The City of Amsterdam, Town of Florida, and County of Montgomery have been working for months on what we perceive to be the first glimmer of hope our impoverished communities have had in years, even decades. This project could truly transform our localities given the scope of this project as a casino complex, a golf course mecca, and also having the residential and commercial opportunities inherent in the project. The response from our citizenry has been incredibly supportive, uniquely supportive, in an unprecedented way. Believe me, as a small town mayor, I can tell you not many things garner 98% of your population support. So this project has been phenomenal in giving us hope, finally. So it was following our public outreach sessions that we, with the communities of Montgomery, again, and Florida, and the County of Montgomery, had gone to Clairvest and Great Canadian to ask them to seriously consider what direction the project would go in, as the public support has largely pushed this project forward. Thus, our request as the involved municipality to meet with the Gaming Commission, and Mr. Fisher was very nice to see us, to discuss our issues about the ambitious timeline and the economic model that had been proposed. County Executive Matt Ossenfort, Business Director, Development Director Ken Rose, and staff met with Mr. Fisher in Schenectady in June prior to the submission deadline. Mr. Fisher listened attentively to our concerns and was careful to make us no promises, so I want to make that very clear. This was to be expected. However, when queried, we were repeatedly instructed that to have any consideration in this process, we must submit an application regardless of the state of completedness. If we did not have an application submitted, there would be no further conversation. And so we took this back to our Canadian partners, encouraged, as there had been some discussion about pulling out. You know, the partners had discussed pulling out prior to us going back. And Florida Acquisitions made the decision to move forward with this process with an incomplete application based on our interpretation from that meeting, and continued to work out the details of this project. Over the ensuing weeks, our partners have tried repeatedly to contact someone here in the Gaming Commission to talk about their possible concerns and questions, and it's my understanding that those attempts at communication were unsuccessful, so perhaps that is also to be expected. But I was surprised and saddened to hear of this recommendation for disqualification via the website, given the potential import of this project to our community, and I cannot stress enough how important this is to us, just to be in the game. I know the governor has made international markets a priority for the state. This project is unique in that it addresses this strategy for economic growth for the state, and I'm hopeful that that strategy and the incessant poverty of our communities will compel this group to reconsider this determination and give us a chance to participate. This commission has the authority and the discretion to reconsider and grant us our request, so we only want a chance. Please, please, please help us.
Well,
Okay? Yes.
Thank you, and let the record reflect I gave you 2 extra minutes. You had 5.
Oh, I am
Thank
so
you, Mayor,
sorry.
for
Okay.
thank you, Mayor, for traveling all the way down here
Okay.
for those comments. Bill?
Mayor Thane, first,
Yes.
as a member of this board, I'd like to thank you for coming down and speaking to us and understanding how important it is to you and to the residents and the constituents in your city. The problem that we have, and probably one of the more transparent and scrutinized processes that this state will ever see, is there's a set of rules that literally every applicant has had to abide by. And if we make it, and I understand how important this may be, but there is an unfairness to all of them, to every other applicant, and to other cities and other municipalities if we say, we're gonna throw the rules out and waive things. And I think that's the one thing that staff, is that we've been scrupulous in following, in saving money with lights. But I think that, when you look at both the request for, I think it was half of the amount to be submitted as well as an extension in time, it somehow undermines the efforts that everybody else made. And that is, and I understand, how important this is.
Yeah.
At the same point, we have pushed and been scrupulous about everybody playing by
Yes.
one set of rules.
Yes.
And we just, at least I can't. We'd undermine the entire process if we did that. And I think that is, that was, as staff looked at, and that's why the recommendation is before us, it would undermine every effort that has been made in a very in very transparent, open, and public timeframe, if we changed the rules at this point. And that's the thing I'd like to express. And again,
Yes.
thank you for coming to speak to us.
Thank you
Right.
so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And again, I'd just like to echo Bill's word. Any action we take will not in any way dismiss the mayor's comments about the need for economic development in that community. And we know the governor supports that, and we support those efforts as well. But there is a process, as Commissioner Thompson mentioned. So there is a motion on the table and a second. And is there any other discussion by any of the commissioners?
Just to echo what Bill said very well, so.
Good. And we need to take an action on the motion. All in favor of the motion to disqualify the Florida application, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Next item, Rob.
New York State Racing Parimutuel Wagering and Breeding Law, Section 1306.9, authorizes the board to promulgate rules and regulations that it deems necessary to carry out its responsibilities. To that regard, the board will, from time to time, promulgate rules and rule amendments pursuant to the State Administrative Procedures Act. Items 4A and 4B are companion pieces. 4A is consideration of rules for permanent adoption. Specifically, on March 31st, 2014,
Let there be light.
the Gaming Facility Location Board adopted emergency rules prescribing the fee information for gaming facility applicants and to enable the board to have a hearing procedures in place before any potential public hearing occurs. The board readopted the emergency rules on May 12th, 2014 and proposed the same rules for permanent adoption. If adopted today, the rules would become effective as permanent upon publication in the State Register, which could occur as early as August 27th, 2014. The emergency rules, however, remain in effect through August 25th of 2014, hence item 4B, which is an extension of an emergency rulemaking pertaining to these very rules to prevent the rules from expiring pending the effective date. The substantive text of the rules has not changed since the emergency readoption on May 12th, 2014. The board now may consider as timely the rules for permanent adoption. While no public comment was formally received in regard to the notice of proposed rulemaking, staff is aware that representatives of Montgomery County had requested that the board reduce the fee applicable to the county by 1/2 or to allow other mechanisms that would result in the halving of the fee. As mentioned prior, this request occurred outside the formal rulemaking process, was individually considered by all board members at that time, and rejected as not feasible nor fair to alter the provisions of the RFA or to make concessions at the request of an individual bidder, and that to do so would create an unfair bidding process for every other potential bidder. Accordingly, for commission consideration now is 1, the proposed adoption of the rules pertaining to gaming facility request for application and related fees and hearings as permanent rules, and 2, readoption of rules pertaining to gaming facility request for application and related fees and hearings as an emergency rule, with such readoption to be filed with the Department of State prior to the expiration of the current emergency rules.
Any questions?
Emergency rules will last how long?
The readoption will last an additional 60 days.
Okay, and it's expected that during that 60 days, the permanent rules will come into effect.
If
They
adopted
would be
today.
expected, if you approve them for permanent adoption today, they'll be effective, we anticipate, August 27th.
Very good.
Any other questions on either the rules or the fees? May I have a motion for the readoption of the rules pertaining to gaming facility request for application and related fees and hearings as emergency rule?
So moved.
And second,
Second?
any additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I need a motion now to adopt the rules pertaining to gaming facility request for application, related fees, and hearings as permanent rules. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Rob, what's next?
Items 4C and 4D are also companion items. Item 4C is consideration of rules for permanent adoption. Specifically, on May 12, 2014, the Gaming Facility Location Board adopted emergency rules prescribing the minimum capital investment for a gaming facility license. The board adopted the emergency rules on that day and proposed the same rules for permanent adoption. If adopted, the rules would become effective as permanent rules upon publication in the State Register, which could occur at earliest, again like the others, on August 27th of this year. The emergency rule remains effective through August 10th, 2014, hence item 4D, which is an extension of the emergency rulemaking pertaining to this very rule. It's designed to prevent the rule from expiring while the effective date of the permanent rule is pending. The text of this rule has not changed since the emergency adoption on May 12, 2014. The board now may timely consider the rules for permanent adoption. No public comment was received, so accordingly, for commission consideration is the proposed adoption of the rules pertaining to the minimum capital investment for a gaming facility license, and 2, a readoption of the rules pertaining to minimum capital investment for a gaming facility license as an emergency rule, with such readoption to be filed with the Department of State prior to the expiration of the current emergency rule.
And what is the rationale behind the different fees for different locations? Because that is the case, correct?
Correct. We ended up doing an analysis with the gaming facility, or the Gaming Facility Location Board's consultant to make a determination as to what was equitable and what was proper to be expected with each of the individual gaming markets. Because the markets were different depending upon their location to population areas and other amenities, they were set differently. So what ultimately resulted was what you have in front of you, which is a different set for each of the 3 different locations.
Any other questions for Steph? So we will need a motion for the readoption of rules pertaining to the minimum capital investment for a gaming facility license as an emergency rule. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And now we need a motion to adopt the rules pertaining to the minimum capital investment for a gaming facility license as a permanent rules. That's in the form of a motion. A second?
So moved.
And second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well. Next, order of business, in the request for application, the board committed to a few public events. Specifically, we will undertake an applicant presentation and regional public comments events. Staff will soon be issuing a guidance document outlining the applicant presentation event and identifying presentation expectations and limitations. Rob, in advance of the guidance that you'll promulgate, can you just share with the commission what your intentions are and outline each event?
Certainly. The request for applications provides that each applicant will be afforded an opportunity to make an informational presentation of its application to the board. The presentation is intended to afford each applicant an opportunity to provide the board with an overview of the contents of its application, explain any particular complex information, and highlight any specific areas that it desires. Logistically, the applicant presentations will be conducted on September 8th and 9th in Meeting Room 6 of the Empire State Plaza. The public will be allowed into the room beginning at 8:30 in the morning, and we anticipate the presentations will commence at 9 o'clock. From a practical view, applicants should anticipate presenting for 45 minutes, reserving 15 minutes for questions by board members. We're going to provide computer for audiovisual applications, a projector, screen, and other equipment to display any other materials like posters, et cetera, that they may want to bring to your attention. The presentations will be web streamed, thus allowing those interested people who cannot otherwise attend to view the proceedings. We'll also archive a video of the presentations on our website, on your webpage, so that anyone interested can access the proceedings at their own convenience. The public comment events have also been scheduled, one in each of the 3 different regions eligible to host a gaming facility. The dates and locations of these meetings are September 22nd, will be in Albany at the Holiday Inn Turf on Wolf Road. The following day, September 23rd, we will be in Poughkeepsie at the Grandview on Rinaldi Boulevard, which is near the train station. And the following day, September 24th, we will be in Ithaca at the Hotel Ithaca. The purpose of these events is to afford individuals and groups an opportunity to provide comment on the general concepts of casino gambling within their region, or specific comment regarding applicants that are proposing in their region. We anticipate each of these public comment events to extend all day and into the evening to accommodate individuals who otherwise may be unable to attend during the working day. For those unwilling or unable to attend, we will also accept written comments that are addressed to the Gaming Facility Location Board. Like the applicant presentations, the public comment events will be web streamed and archived for people's viewing when they'd like. We will shortly be issuing a guidance document that outlines the parameters of the board expectations and participant limitations for both the applicant presentations and for the public comment events.
Great. We should let the record reflect that this board, we're all volunteers. None of us receive any compensation for our services, and thus we all have other day jobs and other commitments, and that not all of us will be able to make every one of these presentations, but that staff has checked with our schedules, and at least one or more members of each of the commission will be able to attend all of these 5 dates that you just shared, and it shouldn't be a reflection on any of us if we're not able to make the meeting in person, and throughout the day we'll try to make efforts to participate electronically for the days we're not able to participate in person. And I know that from firsthand because I know I can't make the second day of the hearings up on Albany. So, but we'll do our best to make the others. So, any other comments or questions on the either 2 hearing dates for the applicants or the 3 public participation meetings in the different sections of the state where the casinos may be located?
I think staff should be congratulated on the extensive efforts and setup that they've done for our benefit.
I think the coordination of all of our schedules, that should be
Alone.
commended for that. That was something.
So they really
Exactly.
an excellent job.
I'll
Good.
relay that to the individuals working on it.
Wait till after.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Rob. Is there any new business that any commissioners want to raise? Staff?
I think you had raised with me a question.
You're right, I did. In terms of, recently there was some articles in some upstate media regarding some computer glitches with our system as we try to put the information on the website. Can you explain to us what happened and have steps been taken to correct that
Sure,
glitch?
That's correct. We had a little problem logistically with getting the information uploaded. We actually had 2 sets of problems. First is just the sheer volume of the materials that we posted ended up being a little unstable, so we had it up for a little bit and then we took it down in order to work with the Office of Information Technology to make sure that it was stable and would be able to allow everyone to access the materials. What we ended up doing was putting up the full redacted versions of each application as were filed with the Gaming Commission. So these are redacted elements as they determined the Freedom of Information Law redactions should be. Staff is going through that right now. Legal staff is going through to make sure that each of the redactions that the individual companies have posted are consistent with the Freedom of Information Law. If we find that they're inconsistent with the Freedom of Information Law, that statute actually has a remediation process, so that if we think that they redacted something that shouldn't be, there's a process by which that'll be resolved. And ultimately, there may be some redacted materials pulling out of that and going into straight unredacted form. We did have a couple of incidents where materials that we were provided were posted that were unredacted. As applicants looked at their applications, they noticed that, asked us to pull it down, and then repost something in a redacted format. For instance, tax returns of one company were posted unredacted and had personal information on it. We honored that, took it down, and then filed it back.
So all issues resolved?
Everything that we have on the web right now, we believe is appropriately redacted, as was provided to us before the legal review. But it's up, it's running, and we have had no crashes since the initial.
Good. I had one other thing I wanted to mention as well, and I have started to receive some emails from people in communities where casinos are proposed, most of them in opposition. I intend to forward all emails to staff, and I would ask that staff diary or catalog any emails from the community and acknowledge receipt thereof, because I don't intend to comment individually. We're a board here, and we should respond as a board through staff, and I would recommend that to my colleagues as well, if they start getting any communications.
We'd suggest to the public right now that rather than trying to contact any one of us individually, that they reach out to staff, and what staff is going to provide that to all of us.
Right. Even better.
And that's a much better way and an easier way and a smarter way for people to be able to interact right now.
We have actually been cataloging all the different pieces of email, literature, letters, etc. We've been cataloging all that for your review when you start your deliberations, and we have also been responsive in sending an acknowledgement out to those.
Great, excellent. And I like Bill's suggestion better than mine. Is there any old business that we need to conduct? Hearing none, that concludes the official published portion of the agenda. And does any of the commissioners want to raise any other issues at this time? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion made.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bobby, did you piss somebody off and I sent you? How you doing, buddy?